we live?
We are.
Right on. Well, hello, everyone. Dr. Jeff here with my good friend Jim Case in our podcast, Adventures in Truth podcast. A little bit redundant there, but people seeking it, yeah, that podcast on YouTube needs to be put in there. Otherwise, we are forging ahead in our fun and pleasure in trying to delve into different topics and ideas each week as we're moving through this thing, trying to take a look at what truth is. We are a couple of weeks away from Christmas. There's all kinds of fun current event things to dive into. Tonight, this afternoon, wherever you are right now, we are going to take a look at this idea of we are where we are because we want to be where we are. And, this goes back, that's not something I invented or Jim invented, or did you, Jim? Did you invent that? And
no, I don't think so. So.
At least maybe not in this lifetime. Maybe you were the original inventor of that, but it might have been a trip or two before this. But that's a really, I'm getting emotional right now because of the intensity of that statement with having to be accountable. And if you can embrace that, if anybody in the audience right now can actually step into the awareness of the possibility, and I can't say that it is this way, and I don't think Jim would say that either, and I'll give him a chance in a minute to talk and say his own piece about this, maybe for the next hour or so, however long we go with this. But it is such a brave, bold embrace to consider that we are where we are because we want to be here. And not only, what I would also like to add to that is there's value in it. I would go so far as to say it's even divine and likely even pre-planned. Some might even say ordained. But it's only the bold and courageous, in my opinion, that can step into this and embrace it. And it's hard, man. It's hard. It's so hard to consider that the struggles and the challenges, the setbacks, the temptations, the beat downs, whatever we call them, all of the above, we're setting it up, we're serving it to ourselves, big huge bowls, big huge scoops. Let me have some more. Creating that I'm right here, right now, exactly in the right place, and exactly in the right experience. Making, hopefully, the outcome of our podcast tonight would be, one of the goals perhaps would be to be able to embrace that, to accept it, to work with it. Years ago, my orientation was, if you don't like something, change it. And sometimes we're meant to go through these things. It's part of the process. It'd be like if you're in a university and you're going through a degree program, there's X number of courses you have to take, and somebody decided to get this degree, you have to take these courses. And if I didn't like my stats class, and I just took it upon myself to say, well, I don't like this class, so I'm going to change it to another class. Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, my academic advisor would say, well, yeah, you can drop that class now and take another one, but guess what, Jeff? You still got to take stats if you want this degree. And we've spoken before in previous podcasts about the possibility that life is a university, or life is a sequence of events and lifetimes and roles that we play and all that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it makes sense to me that there's some kind of organization, more than just randomness, that would get us to this place of what I am going through right now, what I am experiencing right now. I want to be. I am doing it for some reason. And most people that find their way into my office hear me say something along the lines of, it's probably unconscious processing and unconscious choices and reasons and explanations for going through all of this and through the process of therapy. And what we want to bring to our podcast and kick around and talk about is letting just a little bit of that trickle up into consciousness that we then can either morph it, change it, or just accept it and keep going through it, and maybe having some idea that it will make sense and it will be for us rather than against us.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, how's that for an intro, my friend Jim?
Howdy, Jeff. Well, great topic, if I do say so myself. But I'll dive right in because as you were talking, the flood began to unfold. So
Good.
So for me, this is not small potatoes. This is not taken lightly, and it's not meant to be taken lightly. I sort of look at this from a broad perspective initially, and that broad perspective is we all sort of agree, I think, to a large extent, that we are that spark of God, that spark of creation. Whether you want to call it God, the universe, creation, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that we are all that spark, that born of that infinite consciousness. And so from that perspective, I think is where that statement becomes somewhat more of a reality. And I meaning that there is the duality that we experience in the human experience, which is our larger self, that God connected piece, that spark of the universe, that spark of creation, and there's the ego, the consciousness that rules the physical body, the consciousness that in every form of religion and spirituality, this duality exists in some form or another. So from my perspective, this idea that we are exactly where we want to be isn't necessarily and largely not about the ego. It's not about what you're looking at in the day-to-day incidents of your life, meaning it's not about the car, it's not about the money, it's not about the relationship, it's not about the job. It's about the state that you're in, that setting up the environment for the things that you create that set you up for the movement and evolution of your life, which is always moving forward, whether or not you perceive it that way or not. So there is the perception that if it's not all good, I'm not doing well. If I'm in a place that things don't feel great, I'm doing something wrong. And that's a very different place than owning the experience of I'm where I am because it's where I want to be. And so I want to take it down to a little bit more of an example so that it may make a little more sense. So in my own personal experience, I have been wrestling with this kind of what's next in my world. What am I doing? Why am I doing what am I doing? Made a big move to Denver. Am loving the move, loving being here. And yet this question continues to persist in my consciousness about what now? What now? And I found myself doing that whole backhoe thing, going, gosh, I can't seem to find an answer. There must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with what I'm thinking or feeling or doing or whatever. But whatever it is, it's not right, and I got to fix it. And what I realized in a meditation at one point was, wait a second. If I am the master, if I am the creator of my world, if I am the creator of my universe, then where I am has to be where I want to be. I have to be here because it's only me and my world. It's not, there's nothing else. That's it. It's just, that's what is. I'm not talking about relationships and interacting with the world. I'm talking about the inner dynamic that says nothing has to be wrong. And what if that's actually how it started for me. What if this is exactly where you wanted to be? Because the reality is when I took that thought in and I sat with it, what I realized was I can't come up with an alternative. I can't come up with another idea of where I want want to be. I'm not finding some other thing that I'd rather be doing that I'm not doing, because if it was there, I'd have my ass over there doing it. You know what I mean? It would be, I would find that engagement. I would find the inspiration. Something would show up, because that's how it works in my world, in my experience. So it's one of those weird kind of things where, to me, it's that ultimate ownership and responsibility for my experience. It's not about being in judgment of it. It's about being in acceptance of it. It's about moving all resistance. It correlated so clearly to me through the Taoist teachings and the Buddha teachings and the be in the now and be present and be now and be now and be now. Well, if you're being now, if you're being in now, and you're responding to your now without judgment, without trying to pull the past in or trying to create an imaginary future, if you're just present with the moments of your life, that accountability is huge, to recognizing that you're exactly where you want to be and exactly where you need to be. You can't be anywhere else. And I know that sounds a kind of, what's that word? Help me, Jeff. I'm looking for a word.
Patronizing.
Yeah, that one. That was exactly the word. And it's not meant to at all. It's more the importance of recognizing this space and this place of, I'm here because I want to be. And when I can take that ownership, now I have the ability to go in any direction, because I'm completely in my now and completely in non-resistance. Every time I have a thought that says I should be somewhere else, I'm in resistance. If I'm in resistance, I'm holding off any creation that I'm attempting to make, because I'm in resistance. I'm putting resistance into the momentum, so the energy can't flow the way it needs to. So I'll segue that back to you. Here, I'm handing you a plate.
I got it. So deep stuff you're pushing out here, my friend. You mentioned the duality 5 minutes ago or so, and you brought up words like ego, soul, spirit, that sort of thing. And in between there and where you got us and then gave it back to me, no less than 50 times you used the word I. If we could camp out on that for a moment, it would be helpful for us to lay a little more of a foundation of what that means.
Okay.
To then spin it back into this being here exactly because we want to be. I taught a healers group a number of years back, and I challenged the attendees of the group to try to not use the word I in their communications for an hour, for a day. and what you say in place of that. And it's mind-bogglingly near impossible to do that. And we do it so often each and every day, but rarely take the time to actually define what that is. What is I? In my attempts to try to define that, because it's essential, we have to define that in order to get to the I am where I am, because I want to be where I am. And as you mentioned, cars and houses and titles and all that sort of thing, it's not that I. That's not the I that wants to be where it is, because that I would say, no, I want to be Charlie Sheen. I want to be Paris Hilton. I want to be Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates. I want that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, you were defining as the ego. The things you look around, you can touch, feel, see, you can experience it. And most of us want comfort. Most people want comfort and acceptance and attachment and belonging. And that makes and resources. And that brings comfort to that part of the I, which we're calling ego. The other part of I, if we build this from the bottom up, since the brain seems to be built, brain stem and cerebellum, we call that the reptilian brain, primarily oriented toward seeking food, avoiding danger, and reproducing. And that's part of an I all in itself, that we're all wired with that part. Moving up from that part into the mammalian brain, where then we add group cohesion, we add offspring and caring for the young, because the reptiles eat their young. I have tilapia fish growing in the back of my lab, and when the adult fish spawn and reproduce, I have to take the babies out of the tank, because if I don't, the parents eat them. They eat their own kids. That's reptilian nature. I'm not saying that fish are reptiles, but they're like, one step up from that. Still they're not as they don't, birds, some birds will do that as well, Anyway, moving to a different part of the brain where it's more oriented toward group. It also is aware of this idea that if danger shows up, it has to run away, fight it, or freeze and do nothing until the danger passes. And that's still an innate, programmed, genetic, can't override it, part of our nature that is still part of the I. I'm describing the I from the different ways that we understand the brain, and not saying that the brain and the mind are one and the same, just kind of working with big picture pieces here. And then we get into the prefrontal cortex, or the higher brain part that you and I have talked about before, of having compassion and empathy and understanding and judgment and patience and long suffering, and the ability to do complex things like remote viewing or ESP or channeling or those sorts of things. Then you put all that together. If you put all of that together, to me, that would be one way of describing I. But we can be operating in different pieces of that throughout the day. We can be reptilian, we could be mammalian, we could be human. You put all of that together, and I would call that spiritual. When you're operating with all of that, and you're not bouncing back and forth and up and down, you can stay in a spiritual place that really doesn't care about title or name or race or age or sex. It's here to have this experience. And that's the part of the I that I hear you talking about, that could say and mean, I am where I am because I want to be right here, right now, having this experience. Where the ego is like, F that, this is gnarly, it's awful, run away from it, change it, run, hide.
Well, and for those who may challenge the assumption, I would I'm going to directly link it into the religious foundation that many people have, and the way that that's exemplified through that is that many in the Christian faith will say, well, that's God's will. It's God's will that I'm where I'm at, which is true, except they're separating themselves from God. So the idea is right on target. Yeah. God is putting you exactly where you are, and that's you. And how freaking empowering is that? I mean, how amazing is that slight change of perception, which for some may feel like a huge chasm of perception, but that slight change of perception can radically change the way that you move through your life. Because to your point, when you were talking about the science of the brain and the mammalian brain, and the idea of our experience is to be integrated. I think the whole basis of this is we have a choice. We can either be ego-driven, which means that everything that we do is driven by what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. Or we can choose to be driven by something greater or larger and bring that other consciousness into the fold so that it supports what it's meant to do, which is keeping the body on the planet. keeping the body here and present on the planet and free of danger to make sure that we can continue to walk this evolved path. Because somehow the body has to stay protected or there's no point in the exercise, right? It's like if this is ultimately, and we talked about this before, if this is ultimately sort of not even an experiment, but this idea of God seeing its own evolution of through becoming these through these human experiences is getting to witness itself evolving. And that to me is, I mean, that's a whole other topic which we don't need to dive into. I just find it a completely amazing kind of thought process that if you spend some time in that area, but we won't go there tonight. But back to the premise here. So we are where we are because we want to be, because that's where we want to be. I keep looking for a little bit more of a fine tuning because it's not a callous statement, and nor is it a dismissive statement. It's an empowering statement. Meaning there's a lot of ways I'm here because that's what I wanted. So I'm apparently into abusing myself. I'm here because I apparently like being lonely. I'm here because I apparently hate working. Well, the truth of that is that there's truth in all of those responses. The truth of that is that the truth is in those responses if you can separate out the ego from the I am. Because then you stop and go, well, I'm not in a relationship because maybe I don't want to be, or maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I haven't created an alignment yet that I can share with someone, or maybe I'm having more me time. But the reality is, if any individual stops long enough and says, why am I here? You have to say, because this is where I am. Not, there's no other answer. Not because my mom did this or my dad did that, or, I got cancer or I got this or I got that. It's that's all story, and it's all consequential, but kind of irrelevant. In my purview. So
let's keep pushing into this ego versus soul, or ego and soul, spirit, the eternal versus the temporal.
Mm-hmm.
In helping ourselves and others listening to be more mindful and being able to do that recognition moment by moment of which eye am I listening to right now? Which eye am I oriented in right now? Which state am I oriented in right now? And I would, for me, it's
Can I interject something that just popped into my head about that? Maybe it would help so that we don't confuse the issue. Let's leave the I and call the other I me. The I and the me. Because the ego one is all about me. It's me. It's me. It's me, 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 me. Where's me?
Okay, I can work with that. I love it.
So it just gives it a little different dynamic, so people don't get lost in which I were you talking about?
So there's no I in me?
Yeah. I think I've heard that before.
Okay.
But
so
actually, that could be an interesting conversation. But anyway.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe we stumbled onto a little piece of truth there that was one of those simple things right in front of us.
Right.
But if there's discontent, I think that's the first clue for me. Discontent is my first clue that I'm in me rather than I'm in I.
Yeah. I think that's true of any negative emotion. I think that there is a certain amount of, because to my way of thinking is, and this aligns a lot with what they talk about in law of attraction, but it is, I think, important in that we at every moment get the chance to choose our perspective. We get to choose what vantage point we want to see the world through. And I don't think we always recognize that choice exists. We see events, we see things show, we see some bad news or some good news, and we want to relegate it to something rather than it just being what it is, and I'm okay. Back to your truth tests. I'm okay just as I am. I think I got lost somewhere in the middle of that thought process, but it'll come back.
Well, I heard you describe judgment. What you were just talking about is we judge, and we
the negative
judges.
Emotions. Yeah,
we judge. So if there's discontent and there's judgment, I'm operating in me rather than I. There is no judgment in I. There's no I in judgment. Oh, I like that.
There you go.
Literally, there is no I in judgment.
There's not literally. Yeah, because that's going to be that whole judgment piece is what moves us closer or further away in our alignment, which, the alignment is what we've talked about over and over and over again. The alignment being that coming together, or that I would have to say more of an allowing of that I am state, that connected, expanded place, and being able to move through the world that we live in without the judgment that assesses your good, bad, right, wrong, whatever, but just simply experiences and simply allows for the experiences and then creates what you want. But that comes back, and then that will come back around again to I'm where I am because it's where I want to be. Works positively and negatively. It just depends on whether you're willing to stop and recognize the judgment. Are you willing to stop and go, wait a second, I just hurled a whole lot of shitstorm on myself for some reason. I'm not sure why I did that.
So what we're talking about is me no like where I am. The me is what doesn't like where I am.
Yes.
The I is totally cool with where I am.
Because growth is happening where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Expansion is happening where you are. It just doesn't look that way to the me. Me doesn't see that.
As you were talking earlier about oneness and allness, and I can't tell you where or what page or even what chapter in the Course in Miracles there's a reference to I and the Father are one. And I can't quote chapter and verse in the Holy Bible where Jesus confessed or made a statement of, and it was considered heretical, that he and the Father were one. He's trying to teach us that statement that you made about God's not over there. He's right here. He's me. I'm part of him. He's part of me, part of you. And that idea of separateness is what allows us to suck it up and just, it must be God's will that I'm going through this. So I'm just going to stubbornly go through it and resist and slow it down and blah, blah, blah. And that's me having a tantrum. It's me.
And that's so much having my cake and eating it too. That is so much a self-indulgent behavior. I mean, and we all do it. I'm not meaning it judgmentally, but it is incredibly self-indulgent, because that whole line of thinking is saying, yeah, I believe there's a bigger God, but I really want to wallow in my crap. I believe that this is all good, but I want to wallow in my misery. I want to, and it's the great thing about free will. We have the ability to do that. It's the amazing thing about free will. We can, what's the expression? We can choose as much bondage as we want. And again, not meaning to trigger, but being realistic about life experience, being in responsibility to oneself. Why not take that? Why not be in that space of I am that spark, and that's good. You may be uncomfortable with it, but I would challenge anyone out there who leans toward the religious process. Give yourself a day. See if the lightning bolt comes. Call yourself God for a day and see what happens. See how your life changes. See how the format of your life changes when you can acknowledge the power of that within you and then living that on a day-to-day basis. The other challenge that I think it presents is that because we are dualistic in nature, it creates a rub that's not comfortable. And it's difficult to stay in two places at the same time. So you're forced to have to make a choice on a regular basis. Am I going to indulge the me, or am I going to indulge the I? Am I going to indulge the me? Am I going to indulge? And we get those moments hundreds of times a day to give us the opportunity to stop and say, conscious or unconscious, I or me. You know, it all relates. It all comes together. You know, you talked about being the holidays and everybody wants to be magnanimous at Christmas time. Well, probably more often than not, people find a better eye space during this time of year than they do any other time of year. But wouldn't it be lovely if it could be carried on all the time? Somehow we can suspend judgment for a month. Somehow we can suspend as much negativity as possible. Who's doing that? Who's suspending it? I am.
Yep. Well, we call it the spirit of Christmas.
Yeah.
We call it
Again,
this.
let's put it over there.
Yeah, that's this external energy force that's having this influence over me. That once the new year rolls around, it's back to same old stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like January 1st rolls around and it's like, okay, now I can go back to me. Not enough I can go back to me now.
with my New Year's resolutions, right?
Yeah.
The me is making all the New Year's resolutions of how me is going to change and me is going to get better.
And the unfortunate part of that is the basis of me is sameness.
Is what is?
Sameness. The
Sameness.
basis of me is lower brain. The basis of me is I'm going to do what I got to do today that kept me alive yesterday. It's those, you know, and that, I mean, that's dumbing it down to like simple essential, but it's still the same. It's still, you know, we make those choices because we think there's a threat to survival of the me, not the I.
Yeah, that's interesting to consider. Sameness would be an aspect of staying in the domain of the past and merging with the present, but it's only past, present, past, present, past, present, past, present. There's no future. It's just a loop of past, present, past, present, past, present, which essentially keeps you in the past.
Well, I was going to say the exact same thing, is that it only goes past present once, and then you're in the indefinitely because all of your activity is based on that. So how does that create forward movement? Well, that to me is the beauty of all of that. It doesn't prevent you from moving forward. You may go more slowly. You may have a bumpier ride. You may go off on tangents down paths that you didn't expect. But none of those choices and none of those outcomes are making you go backwards. None of those outcomes can cause you to go backwards. An individual can continue to restrict their flow of I. They can continue to pinch themselves off from I and create circumstances in their world that create more and more hardship and more pain and more suffering. But all of that is still leading to greater outcomes, because the desires that are created as a result of those feelings are the desires that are creating your future. The desires that are creating momentum to move you in a forward direction or in a different direction, which is still forward. So it's, you know, so it's like no matter how you slice it, it all weaves back to the same. It still comes back to the same place, you know. And I love that. I love that there is that much consistency in our universe in that way, even though it feels random at times. You know?
So I'm wondering if we can come up with some more solutions or clues to be more clueful of the state, the energy, the dual space that we're occupying in the moment, to bring that more up into consciousness, that we could make healthier choices and have a cleaner experience. Not that there's a race, but just to move through it. Just to move through it.
Yeah. Well, I would offer one of the things that I think is foundational in any type of, I don't know what to call it, spiritual process, but whatever, any process in which you want to engage to actively participate in the consciousness expanding, and it's that whole idea of energy up and energy down. Mm-hmm. And that energy up is about I, energy down is about me. It's difficult in the beginning to recognize that the me factor, if it's not integrated into the I, typically does not have your best interests at heart. I'll say that again.
Good.
It's difficult for people to grasp sometimes that the me, because of its focus in the physical realm, if unattached to the I, is not going to create outcomes that you feel good about.
Yeah.
So when that duality becomes a more integrated space, you use the idea of energy up, energy down. So how I look at that is that any activity that I'm about to get involved in, and I'm going to preface this, well, I'll come back to the other end. So anything you're going to do, if you go to do it and your energy drops, to me, the first thing you do is stop and step back. The first thing.
So
don't engage.
Dropping, what does that mean?
Energy dropping, meaning you, as you're about to engage, you feel that heaviness in the pit of your stomach. You feel disoriented. You feel confused. You feel unclear. There's a tendency, or there's a feeling of, sometimes it's I kind of like, I don't know where to go from here. I'm going to sit down and work on a project. I have this project that I think I need to get done. I need to get it done. I have to get it done. And so I go to sit in front of this project and my energy falls out. And what that can look like is I start falling asleep doing this project. Or I find that I can't even focus because my mind is so busy running about some other 12 other things that I can't bring focus to this. So I say at that moment, if you're being conscious, you'll catch that very quickly. You'll see that you're just sitting there banging on the keys or just like not getting anything accomplished. So step back, because the bottom line is you don't know enough, you need more information, or you don't have enough information. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You're not there. You're not aligned with that activity. So in doing that, you create a space of non-resistance and non-judgment that gives precedence to the I. It's a way of stepping back and saying, okay, I realize I'm needing more information, or I'm needing something here. I need something. Don't know what it is yet. So I'm in responsibility to responding to my own energy. I'm saying, all right, I'm taking a step back. I'm going to observe. I'm going to inquire. I'm going to ask a couple questions of myself and see where I'm calibrated. I may walk away from that. And in most cases, I will walk away from that thing and not come back to it again until I feel inspired to do so. Now, people can argue and say, yeah, but I have deadlines and I have jobs and I have these, I have to go to work. I have to make money. I'm not disputing any of that. What I want people to recognize is that if you get up every day to go to a job and your energy drops every time you wake up in the morning, find another freaking job, because you're not doing the thing that you feel aligned with. You're not doing the thing that brings you joy. You're not doing the thing that elevates and lifts you. And I'm not talking about necessarily petty crap because I don't want to go to work because Joe's going to yell at me because I did XYZ. That's another deal. That's a whole other deal. This is about the activity of going to the place that you are calling your job, the thing that you invest 50% or more of your life in order to get a paycheck. I'm talking big. I'm going a little larger than the minutia here, but because as I'm talking, I can hear the pushback.
Well,
yeah, buts. The yeah, buts.
Sure. Let me jump in with some of the possible solutions to the yeah buts.
Please.
What I hear you sharing right now, Jim, is for people listening to this podcast. Your message is for the people listening to this podcast. There are some people that your statement, although it's true, they could not comprehend it, nor are they in a place that they could just apply that. They're going to keep changing tires at the local tire shop, even though it's not what they want to be doing. That's what they're going to keep doing because they're not further along, evolved, whatever you want to call it. However, I could say that, not to be judgmental. They just are where they are. But this message would be difficult for somebody like that to hear it and just step into it. Mm-hmm. This is for somebody that's a little bit further along, a little more open. Do you have any thoughts about that? Yeah.
Well, I do. And that is, you got to start somewhere. Everybody has the experience of energy up and energy down. Every human being on the planet has it. The question is, when do you start honoring it? Right. I'm not saying you recognize you hate your job, so you quit the next day. Although that could be the thing that creates the transformation of your life. But you know that. Only the individual who's in that energy can say that. But every human being has the ability to stop and go, how does this feel? So for someone like you were talking about who might be feeling like they're stuck in this dead end job, changing tires or whatever the case may be, it's about awareness in the beginning. You got to remember you got to put the cart before the horse. Don't put the cart before the horse. It's got to go in succession. So yes, the process applies to everyone. Yes, everyone can do it. And individuals who have done a bit more work in this arena will have a much easier time with it than people who may not have experienced it before. Uh-huh. But the idea that we can all stop and assess the state of our energy in any moment, anytime, anywhere is the beginning of the process, is the very beginning of being able to get conscious and to be able to differentiate between the I and the me. So first is get conscious. First is get into awareness, however you can do that. Now, maybe this tool isn't one that you might resonate with, but it's one that I think transcends any level of consciousness or any level of anything, because just becoming conscious of the ebbs and flows of your own energy system creates quantum transformation. Quantum transformation. It's not minor. You don't just wake up feeling better tomorrow, and you do that as well. But that's the thing about, to me, that how that all those cooperative components is that as soon as you lose resistance, as soon as you're willing for one day to start becoming more conscious, you're flooded with energy. You're flooded with ideas. You're flooded with stuff to help you continue that momentum. And yeah, can that feel overwhelming at times? Because you get to see a lot. You get to see how far you may be from your destination. But again, the idea is you observe that, observe it. And as you observe it more, you become more conscious. As you become more conscious, you become more inspired. As you become more inspired, you can take action that aligns to those things you understand and allows you to continue to grow and expand in a way that is not overwhelming, but keeps you conscious. And it isn't necessarily easy. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does.
So that's it's. I definitely agree with you that some will find it a lot easier to go there than others, for sure.
They're closer to being ready or are ready. And so you were talking about pushback. And it's interesting that most of the time when I'm in session with folks and we get close to a growth point, the pushback that I hear will be in the form of people coming up with hypotheticals that have nothing to do with their life.
Yeah.
And they're reaching for straws, and I hear their pushback and their resistance. I'm like, well, what does that have to do with you? Because they're looking for a one size fits all. And although these may be universal truths or big T truths, not everybody's ready. And just because they're not ready, some people aren't ready yet. Anyway, I was just reflecting on your the notion of resistance and pushback.
Yeah, let's go back to that, because you made a left turn there. You were going in a direction about clients reaching for those stories, and then made a left turn, because I thought you were going to somewhere about how that unfolds, how that resolves. So when that happens, what tools do you use to bring them into awareness of the deflection?
Yeah, well, they're deflecting by using a hypothetical of someone else's situation or story rather than their own, as a way to safeguard opening up their own. As if it doesn't apply across the board to everyone, it can't apply to me. That's the defense strategy.
Yeah, and actually, that's another really, really, really good tool, is recognizing that while there is consistency, one of the wonderful things about the idea, and I think it was, wasn't it Thomas Campbell that we were listening to that talked about this? One of the amazing things about free will is we all get to choose our path. We all get to walk this however the heck we want to, recognizing that, and I love this encapsulation of the idea of free will, but free will is that free will idea that your free will is based on what's available to you. It's not everything. Free will doesn't mean you have access. I mean, ultimately you do, but it's still about you have, within the confines or the constraints of what you've created in your life, the free will to act within that. Your free will is all about what's available to you. And I love that idea, because each person then is if you recognize that I am on a path, you can bring me with you.
Right.
If you're in the idea that me is on a path, I's not coming with you.
Well, the I's not on that path. Yeah.
I's not on that path. So you have that another place, another place to become conscious.
Yeah. So when we're on the path and when it feels good, we're on the I path. When life feels good, we're on the I path, even though it may be tough. Mm-hmm. We have hope and inspiration and persistence and long suffering and all that sort of thing, and some kind of clarity of it's purposeful, it's divine. I may not see the big picture, the full picture, but I know that there's something in this for me that is beneficial, and I'm not stuck in the past, present, past, present, past, present, past, present loop. I am actually moving. I'm moving, and moving is good. Motion is good.
Been having this experience. I'll tell you the actual, and it's so mundane and kind of funny to me, but one of the things that what brought this to light for me in a really big way is that I have had no interest in exercise for quite a while. And it's been one of those things that has kind of niggled at me, like, Jim, just go drag your ass to the gym and get it done, and I could even get as far as putting my clothes on. But as soon as I put my clothes on, my energy falls out. And I'm like, "Ugh, okay." So I stopped fighting it. I stopped resisting it. I stopped arguing with it. And I said, okay, I'm not there. So over the course of the last week, I have gotten excited about going on hikes and gotten excited about, I want to go on a bike ride. I want to go on a walk. I want to, I'm not going to go to the gym necessarily. And I may go to the gym at some point. I don't know. But it's that whole thing of um, just allowing the energy to unfold as it does. And so there's a sort of there's a bigger message in this for me, in that suddenly I'm interested in movement. And it's been the thing that has been the thing I've been struggling with for the past year, so I do movement. I moved to Denver. Okay. There's some movement, but I haven't physically been as engaged as I know I usually am. So to have that inspiration and to feel like I want to do it and to go out and do it and enjoy it and feel the invigoration is really a cool thing. But it's also a big statement because I'm now applying my energy in a non-resistant fashion, saying I'm ready for movement and I'm excited about movement and I'm excited about doing this movement. And I don't have to make it any more or less than that. I don't have to keep a scorecard. I don't have to do any of that. I can just enjoy this evolution and travel the path to wherever it's going to go. I don't know, but it's exciting to me that I'm excited about movement again. But that was where it really drove home this whole thing of, I'm exactly where I am because it's where I want to be. I can't make up somewhere else to go. I can't force myself. I'm sure Michael would be thrilled if I came, if every night I said, let's go out, let's go to the bar, let's go party, let's go do this, let's go do that, whatever. But I couldn't get there from here. I couldn't get to a point where I could, I couldn't find any motivation. I couldn't find any energy. I couldn't find any interest. So what's the point of forcing myself to do something? Because that's adding more resistance to the process. So to have it coming naturally is where I think where that foundational piece came in. It was like, oh, I'm where I am because it's where I wanted to be. And now something is shifting in my consciousness that wants movement. So let's entertain movement and see where that goes. Pretty extraordinary stuff. And it sounds so simple. I mean, as I talk about it, it sounds like it's like silly simple, but I don't, it isn't perceived that way by me at all. And I think that's the other thing about it being so, that each person's process is so personal, because the language, the understanding, the evolution of it happens in a way that is ultimately most satisfying to the person experiencing it.
I wonder how much time in a person's life, what the percentages of time spent are in me space and I space.
That's a good question. Probably changes on a day-to-day basis, I would guess. What are your thoughts about it?
Initially, I think the vast majority is spent in me space, on accumulation of resources, on status, trying to reach certain status, certain levels of security, certain levels of safety, recognition, achievement. That's a lot of me stuff right there.
Yeah.
That whole idea of he who has the most toys wins.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting if we could make a shift if we could have a contribution in making a shift of people operating in more of their I space, of taking a breath before getting upset, before their autonomic nervous system does a downshift in energy. and take a breath and say, ah, all of my energies and past lives and ancestors and spirit guides and God and everything else has got me to here right now in this moment. And could I possibly sit here, stand here, be here right now in this place until I can feel comfortable in this place, to have some awareness and understanding of what my next step is going to be? And can I make that in an I space rather than a me space? Because me just wants to get out of there. If it's uncomfortable, painful, it just wants to get out of there. Me doesn't want to be at the gym unless it's to have a certain size abs or biceps or lift a certain weight or
get laid
an appearance, or get laid. The I energy there is you're taking care of the body, you're taking care of the all, the oneness. It's not about number of sit-ups or weights lifted or dress size or any of that other stuff. That's not important.
And I think it's also important, which I think you have touched on, but I think it's important to acknowledge that neither of us is attempting to say that any of that is wrong, that any of that is bad, that any of that is inappropriate. It's all specifically individually driven. And if that's what lifts your energy, then by all means, I have this conversation with, particularly with bikers, or no, not with bikers, with runners. I've had this conversation so many times. It's funny because I'm always curious. Do they like it? Because I've tried to do it. I know at least 5 or 10 times in my life, because my dad used to run, my brothers used to run, or actually my one brother did. And I have tried, I don't know how many times over the years to get into it. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I don't find the zone. And even if I find the zone, I don't care because it doesn't feel good. It's like there's nothing about it that I find enjoyable. So I'm always curious when I meet people who run, why do you do this? Like, do you really like doing this? And I would say 60% of the time, the individual, it's something they're completely aligned with. It takes them to an altered state. They're able to maintain that state, and it's a very positive experience from top to bottom. But good 40% of them, typically most of them don't like it, but they do it because it's the way they've learned to run off their energy. It's the way they've learned to run off their stress, whatever the case may be. But this whole idea is all about getting conscious. So it's about recognizing what behaviors, what things do you do in everyday life. Observe. What do you do? How does it feel when you do it? Don't judge it. Just look at it. How does it feel? Do you like how this feels, or do you not like how this feels? And if you don't like how it feels, maybe you have in your private space, in your little notebook, you start observing. I like this. I like this. I like this. And then in your daily practice, you focus on those things that you like and you appreciate them, and you put a lot of gratitude and energy into those things. And the things that you don't like, you don't put a lot of energy on. Actually, you could tear that half of the page out and burn it, but getting conscious, you then can start to find ways to migrate those things from one side to the other, and find that some of them may not migrate. Some of them you're doing because this is what we do. This is what the cases do. It's what we've always done. And then you got to stop and really consider, so how do I influence that? What do I bring to that that's unique and different that I can enjoy or not? If the activity stimulates me, then it's probably not helpful. If it stimulates desire for I, then it's probably really good. So it's, getting that idea of just finding ways to start being conscious of how your energy unfolds for you on a daily basis is the first step to stepping into the idea that I'm here because this is where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can say that about all of it, it's good. And hell, we're in the fifth decade of our lives here. We're or at least I am. It's still an exploration, but the cool thing is it becomes more joyous. It becomes more free. It becomes more of everything. The more conscious you become, because you stop doing the things that make your energy. You stop doing those things that don't make you feel good, because you don't have to feel good to be here. No, you don't have to feel bad to be here.
Right.
You want to feel good to be here.
I want to apply what we're talking about to our lives.
Yeah.
I like that part of our podcast where we can be real and transparent, and we're not just talking theory and concepts, but how we might apply it or live it or experience it. And I went to the dollar store on a break yesterday to buy some wrapping paper. I much prefer to pay $1 for it at the dollar store than $3.95 at Walmart or somewhere else. And I always find it interesting, the people that I observe shopping there. There was a gentleman checking out before me in line that had 3 items that he was purchasing and came up 51 cents short in his purchase, and he was having a dialogue with the cashier about which of the 3 items he was going to have to put back because he didn't have the money to buy all 3. And we're talking about items at the dollar store, right? So we're talking about he didn't have $3, and they were food items. And I'm looking at what I've got on the little conveyor belt of my purchases, and none of anything that I was buying I needed, and it certainly wasn't food. So I'm caught up in this moment of I'm buying stuff either for myself or someone else that none of us need, and I'm not even giving a thought to how much it's going to cost because I'm at the dollar store. And here this guy is very much contemplating what he can have now in this moment, and he's 51 cents short. And so he put his peaches back, his canned peaches he couldn't buy. And so the lady put it in a little, box next to the cash register, and he went on his way. And I made my purchase, and I asked the lady, "Can I have that can of peaches?" And she rang it up. And after I walked out of the store, I found the guy who was down by my car, and I said, "Hey, here's the peaches you wanted." And he turns around, and he just lit up a cigarette. And in that moment, me said, "What the F? You chose cigarettes over peaches?"
Oh, that's
right?
brilliant.
So the me, right? The ego, the judgmental person. Here I'm doing what I think is an act of kindness and handing the guy the peaches that he wanted. And I remember him saying, "Oh, of these 3 items, I was really looking forward to this one. These ones taste the best." So it kind of touched my heart. And I made a 51 cent, I don't know how much it was, but it's $1 or less, right? And went down again. But the guy had a big smile on his face, and he was more alive and more in the moment than I was by far. And he had like no stress energy on him. He was on his bike. I'm guessing in his 30s. Looked like he hadn't had a shower in a while. Homeless guy. And after the encounter, he said thank you. I said you're welcome, and we went our separate ways. But so I'm driving back over to the office, and I'm thinking, which one of us is living more authentically? Which one of us is? And it was just interesting, and I really couldn't come up with an answer. But I do remember being in his energy, and he really wasn't worried about much, and it seemed kind of like childlike in a way, and he's here having a very, very different experience than I am. Not a better one, not a worse one, just a different one. But just an overall interesting experience that I was just fascinated by how instantly judgmental I became when he turned around and he had a cigarette in his hand. Because my judgment was food before cigarettes. But in his world, his cigarettes make him feel good. And people that are using cigarettes and alcohol or other things, that actually is their staple ahead of food to cope with, deal with their lifestyles. And yet I found myself judging him that he should have bought the damn peaches and not the cigarettes. But I'm not living his life. If I was living his life, it would probably be a lot more than just cigarettes that would, I would require to instantly jump into his life and try to live that.
Well, maybe on the instant, but he's been at it for a while, so
right, yeah,
he's honed his craft.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out how to share this story because that was a great. I had a very powerful experience day before yesterday. It was, I don't know, 7:00 in the morning. I was out driving, and I'd stopped at. I had finished my coffee, so I wanted to get something cold. So I want to get some iced tea, and so I stopped at this Circle K, and I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So I go into the store and I go into the bathroom, and as I'm going to the bathroom, I look on the toilet and there is a wallet sitting on the toilet. And I'm like,
is the wallet taking a dump?
Yeah. No. So I was like, this is really interesting dilemma. Okay, well, so I pick up the wallet. The wallet has $340 in it.
Nice.
Couple of singles, a bunch of paper. No identification, no credit cards, no driver's license, no information. There's a couple little, like, 1/2-inch by 1/2-inch pictures of a boy and a girl, which I assume were the person's kids. But that's the only thing, virtually, other than these piles of paper stuffed in this thing. So I go back out into the store, and I have the wallet in my pocket. And I think, okay, I'm just going to hang out here, and I want to see, of all the people in the store, if anybody goes up to the register and says, "Did you find this? Is anybody appearing panicked? Did somebody get to the register?" I mean, I stood there for 15 minutes waiting for people to, to go through, and I went, well, okay, so there's nobody here, and the person isn't here because there's nobody looking. So I'm like, all right, I take the wallet, I go out to my car. And now I'm going through the wallet in earnest, trying to figure out, is there going to be a way to find this person? Happens to have a reference letter from a guy who I assume he works for, but it was from like August. And it says, it just says, so-and-so works for me, blah, blah, blah. If you have any questions, call me. And I thought, all right, well, I'll call him. So this was because it could be his boss. So I called and left a message and said, "Hi, my name is Jim. I'm trying to reach this person. I may have found something of his. Please pass the message on." So as I'm digging through for more, and this wallet is full of things like torn up pieces of, when you go to the bank and you get an envelope for your cash. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll put it in an envelope for you. Those envelopes torn in half and pieces of those envelopes stuffed in his wallet. And then I find another piece of paper, like an official thing. I think it was some kind of a driver's something. I don't remember. It wasn't a driver's license. It was some kind of certificate of some kind. And then I found some other document that was from like July or August that actually had a phone number. So I texted the number and said, "Hey, hi, your name, and this is my name, and I may have found something." And then I let it go. And then Michael and I got together for breakfast, and I was like, I don't know what to do about this. I have this wallet. haven't heard, I've reached out, $340 in this wallet. I mean, and then this looking at the pictures of the kids. And so there's a story evolving about this wallet, although I still don't know if the person even knows that they've lost the wallet. And the guy ends up calling me, Hispanic guy, just like beside himself that I actually found this wallet and that I was trying to get it back to him. And he was just beside himself. Talking about being in tears from having lost it because he had to send money back for his kids, and just a whole story. And so I agree to meet him 45 minutes later. So I go to this Burger King to meet him, and I'm sitting in the parking lot. 45 minutes I'm waiting. This is in addition to the 45 minutes we already agreed to wait. So I'm 20 minutes into sitting there going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that I like the whole no good deed goes unpunished. I got to sit here and wait for this freaking dingbat to show up, and so I'm texting. I'm like, are you coming? Yeah. I'm coming. He's leaving job to come get his wallet with his money because he's got to take care of his kids. I mean, it's a whole thing, right? 45 minutes later, and I'm finding myself being all juiced up and pissed off that I've had to waste 45 minutes sitting here when I'm trying to do a nice thing. And I'm like sitting there watching myself going, are you kidding me right now? And it's like, how rude is this? How could this guy 45 minutes he's leaving me sit here. Why don't I just drive away? F him. I've been waiting here, and we already agreed to 45 minutes. Now an hour and a half later, I'm like, finally he shows up, comes up to the car. And I'm still a little bit in the veneer of you've inconvenienced me, I'm like
me,
and I look
me,
right? You've inconvenienced me, and I look at the guy. He comes up to the car, literally the minute he sees my face, his eyes well up with water. He's just overcome with, he can't even believe that I'm actually there and then I'm actually handing him back this wallet. And I swear to you, if it was one of those moments, where it was like I don't even know how to, it's like he like put a spell on me kind of thing. It was like God look over you and take care of you and bless you. And, and I mean, just went on and on and on and on, and just a delightful human being. And I was so grateful that it all worked out the way it did. But so amazing going from the moment of I to the moment of me, and watching how I went from feeling really good to feeling like a complete dirtbag in a very short order of time. And like, I could just take this money and drive away. Well, dude, this isn't you. There's nothing about this that's yours. But just fascinating how, like, how quickly do you go from I to me? Like, even in a circumstance that, like, both of us, I think both of the circumstances were about recognizing some greater connection and seeing people, potentially who may be, they're not suffering, but, aren't getting what they need or what they think they need. And we have the ability to influence that. And even within that, still have the ability to go, me, what about me? Where's me?
Right.
Crazy. Even to the degree of, is he going to give me money? Is he going to do something? What's he going to do for me? What's going to come out of this for me? Well, the good feeling that you just helped this man at Christmas time who just lost $340 and wasn't going to have Christmas for his kids, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, crazy good.
I think that's important, that we could acknowledge how we can quickly bounce from one to the other. They're both very, very active, powerful energies.
The hard part of it is not judging myself for having gone there.
Sure.
And I say that because I want to take it back to energy up, energy down. I want to take it back to that moment of getting conscious of what we do. Is that moment doesn't define who I am any more than your moment defines who you are. it's part of the process. It's part of the process of becoming conscious. It's part of recognizing that, yeah, I got some pretty crappy parts of me sometimes. And it's about recognizing that I don't have to let those dictate my choices. I don't have to let them run my experience, and I certainly don't have to create from it unless that's where I put my focus, unless that's where I put my energy and attention. But I can recognize that that's there, and I can say, it's like listening to background noise. It's and that's how I kind of choose to deal with it. Is I go, okay, move on. The good news is I stood in front of a man whose heart just exploded in his chest with joy and every kind of good feeling that you could possibly think of, that just got resolved in a way that his life can carry on in a way that he was looking forward to, that's pretty awesome. And in the same moment, I was having some me stuff, but the me stuff didn't define my engagement. It was just a part of the experience.
Yeah. Jim, do you wonder if, because certainly that experience sounded like that was worth the 45 minutes, and it was worth you not doing the finders keepers, I'm $340 to the plus side and giving it back to him. I wonder if me can even feel that, can even resonate with that, or if that's almost only something that I can get into.
That's a really good question. Think on that for a.
Would ego even slap you down going, what an idiot, keep the money, dumbass, you could use this, who knows when there's
I went through all that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I went through all that.
That's the voice of the ego. I
knew exactly how I was going to spend that $340. Oh, trust and believe. I was very clear where that money was going. And it was a little Christmas, it was a little bill pay, it was a little dinner. I mean, it was covered. So, but it's interesting because I think it answers your question to some degree, is that me can only satisfy me. So where was it going with that? At least it seems that way, that if in the Eastern tradition, when they talk about when the personality is integrated into the soul expression, it then becomes a vehicle of the soul's expression. I can't say that I honestly know, because it's one of the conundrums that I've had as I've gone through my own process, is there a point where that goes away? Is there a point where that falls off? I think about the people that we know of that have been talked about, whether it's Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad or whoever, all had very powerful me moments. I mean, we talked about this in the previous podcast. Jesus' moment on the cross, God, why have you forsaken me? He didn't say, why have you forsaken I? He said, why have you forsaken me?
Or even us, right?
Or us, or anything. So it's, that's one of those ones that I actually would love to explore more in an actual research, because I'm trying to think, like in Autobiography of a Yogi, when Yogananda talks about his process, there was me crap all over his process for a very long time. But I'm trying to remember now when he achieved or reached the levels of consciousness that he did, does the personality so completely integrate that it's not even an issue anymore? I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that because I'm not there yet. I think I'd like to find out, but what about you? Do you have any anecdotal references that might help illuminate that question?
Well, I don't know, anecdotal through just uh, statements that we make or colloquialisms that we use, like the finders keepers, losers weepers. I mean, that's a concept that that's a me concept. Uh, and the other side of that would be like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's an I concept. I suppose we could probably sit here and come up with a whole bunch more of these just basic, is the concept or notion a me statement or an I statement? And they're all valid. They're all valid to the state or the energy that you're operating in at the time.
Yeah.
And they're all justifiable. If you're in that camp, you're going to see that energy. You're going to flow in that energy. You'll justify and use that. I don't know. Right now, I'm being mindful of one of my mentors just talking about, instead of me and I, it's light and shadow as the contrasts or the opposites, and his continual reminder of, love your shadow. You got to love your shadow. And, you frequently say, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about my soul and spirit doesn't need to be gentle and kind to itself. It already is, right?
You're right.
Talking about the me part, the ego part.
Yeah. This is cool. Well, we are, I think, well into our process here, probably ready to wrap for the day.
I have that feeling also, yeah.
Comfortable for you?
Yep.
This has been, for me, just a great topic and a great conversation. I think I love that we've been able to sort of lay the foundation and provide some suggestions and some ideas and bring it home in a way that somebody can walk away and say, maybe I could start paying attention a little bit. That's all it takes. Let the crack that door just a hair.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
What's up with me? Might be something someone would ask themselves when they're feeling in a state of discontent or low energy or confusion, any kind of autonomic nervous system activation of fight, flight, freeze, any of those things would be a summary of somewhat of what we've talked about, in recognizing your ego is here to serve you in a way to sustain you and keep you going. Oftentimes it can get in the way of the spiritual growth and hinder our ability to truly see the spiritual path that we're on, because it's not on that path.
I created this analogy that I'm partial to about the ego, and that I liken it to giving the keys to your multi-billion-dollar business to a 12-year-old and saying, "Go for it, have fun." They're not equipped. They're not designed for it. It's not in their nature to even comprehend what was just presented to them.
Right.
So they're going to make it up. They're going to make all of it up. They may be smart enough or witty enough or clever enough to happen into the right people or make some connections, but ultimately they're not qualified, nor is the ego. I always like, that if you try to give it the job of the CEO, it's not going to go well because it doesn't have the ability to comprehend at that level. It's designed to keep the body on the planet. That's, and if you can keep it that simple, it makes it really easy to make choices because you don't have to beat your head about it. Like you said, I love the statement is what did you say? What is, what's going on with me? It's actually a loaded question, because you can actually use that when you're in that negative space, like, what's going on with me? Me in quotation marks. What's going on with me? And then again, you become the observer of it. You don't become the participant in it.
Right.
By doing that, which I think is an incredibly valuable thing. So.
There is no I in judgment was another one of the little
Love
things
that.
we get to stumble on tonight.
So as we part for the evening, just ask that the listeners, all of you wonderful people out there, just take a second and see how you can feel your way into I'm exactly where I want to be right now, regardless of circumstance. And thank you for being here to participate and check out this podcast. And we would love your comments. We'd love your interaction. We're continuing to grow and expand this and learn more about, where we want to take it and what we want to do with it. But, we welcome your ideas and thoughts and like our videos, check out our YouTube page, check out our Facebook page, Adventures in Truth podcast. Jeff, another awesome evening with you, my friend.
Thank you. Same to you.
And
good times.
Looking forward to more and more.
All righty. Good night, all.
Good night, all. Coming to